does not compare to everything Porsche.
This?
Yeah.
Or that?
I'm sorry, there's just nothing. Yeah, like.
All right, guys, today I am at Gaudin Porsche, and behind me, if you haven't been able to tell, is it cherry metallic?
This is finished in cherry metallic.
A Porsche Taycan Turbo S. And I'm here with Paul Jarret, the general sales manager of Gaudin Porsche. It's nice to meet you.
Hey guys, it's good to be here. Thanks for having us. You know, Gaudin Motor Company's been around, and Aiden's part of that story for 99 years. And we've been a Porsche dealer since 1986. Had a lot of brands over the years, but Porsche and Ford are certainly our most passionate brands. Here is a huge part of history for Porsche. Actually, our owner, Gary, he said when he first drove this car, when he came back from Germany, he said, this, Paul, this is the most impactful thing that Porsche has done since they introduced the 911.
All right, guys, let's get right into the review.
So what does the exterior of the Taycan Turbo S have in store for us?
This particular Taycan, though, is truly the king of the hill. This is the top of the line. It's called the Turbo S. A lot of people talk about why they would use the word turbo with an obviously electric car, battery electric vehicle, and that's because Porsche's hierarchy of trim levels have always been based around that word turbo. So, which was obviously popularized in the late 70s with the 911 Turbo. Probably the most popular turbo ever made. So a couple of highlights for us here. This car was sent out many years ago in a prototype version called the Mission E. What's really exciting about seeing the Taycan in person is that it's striking how similar it is to the prototype, which is lost a lot of times, obviously from concept cars. So a couple of design features that are really worth noting. Porsche many years ago came out with their trademark running light, which was 4 pieces on each side coming out. So it kind of looked like 8 claws coming out you in the rear view mirror.
Right.
What's new with the Taycan is now the rectangular, the 4 of them. So they certainly have a striking look to them. So a lot more striking things here. So you can see here the carbon fiber that's being finished on the car.
Yes.
With Porsche, you can get an option called the Sport Design package in carbon fiber, but it doesn't look like this. So to get this look with the carbon fiber, with the smaller air vents here on the side of the car, that's only available in Turbo S. So it's one of the ways you can tell you're looking at a Turbo S, other than the badging on the side and things like that. No matter how you look at any Porsche, there's going to be some things about the silhouette and about its design that is only Porsche.
Yeah.
And one of the big ones is how big those front fenders are. See how large those front fenders are and how wide this car is.
Yeah.
So the front fenders are important not only for design, but they're really important when you're in the middle of high-speed, aggressive driving. So what happens is from the driver's seat, you can spot the front corners of the car with no problem with those large front fenders. One of the design aspects of the Porsche that is truly both innovative and yet traditional. Here's some fun things about the car. It's got the power charge port. So you can just run your hand under there and that'll give you a power charge port to be able to charge the car. There's a charge port on both sides, AC on both sides, which is the way you'll usually charge a car, like at your house or office. There's also a DC fast charger, which I'll show you on the other side. This car is finished in what were called Mission E design wheels. So you can see that they're 5-spoke, but yet they go another step further where we take the outer portion of the barrels here, and these are actually painted to match the exterior color of the car, which is called cherry metallic. So even the wheels are cherry metallic.
Yeah.
So if we step back just a little bit, take a look at the size of these brake rotors. Much of the braking is done by the batteries in reverse cycle.
Yes.
The recuperative braking aspect of the car. PCCBs, Porsche carbon ceramic braking system. Here's something that's really like one of my favorite things about the Taycan. It is one of the highest performing Porsches that have ever been built, yet it's still exceedingly practical.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you can get 4 or 5 passengers in this car. It has a real trunk in the back that's very large. I mean, look at how deep that trunk is back there. I think that we could pull off a run to Home Depot, the two of us.
Oh, yeah.
So here's the thing about electric cars a lot of people don't talk about because it's not the sexiest thing to talk about, and that is the coefficient of drag.
Yeah.
And this car is one of the slipperiest cars through the wind tunnel, getting near that 0.2 mark, which is incredibly efficient. However, Aiden, maybe the most important thing about this car is its charging system and its battery system. It's the only 800 volt battery electric car on the market right now. It's the fastest charging car in the world, and it will charge 100 miles of driving in 5 minutes and 200 miles of driving in 22.5 minutes. So again, on the outside here, you see the power charging port on the right side of the car, but this one looks a little different. because it has the DC fast charging. And another design feature that is very impressive when you're sitting in the car, but I'd like to highlight out here, is a full glass roof. The entire roof is glass. Actually, what's new for 2021 model year, a double bubble aluminum roof, and that double bubble does match the design aspect of the hood. I know I showed you the front fascia with carbon fiber and the rear fascia. Another thing are the sport design side skirts, which have a carbon fiber trim here as well. You can also specify this to have, say, these side skirts finish an exterior color or something along those lines. But with Porsche, with the Turbo S, it's the carbon fiber that really sets off the exterior markings of the car.
We all know Porsches are very high quality vehicles. So what does the interior of the Taycan have to offer anyone who buys it?
Okay, so sitting here inside the Taycan, you'll see that there are a lot of screens to take a look at. But I'll tell you that all of them have a defined purpose, of course, and that's another hallmark of Porsche, is making sure that the form follows the function. So possibly one of the most important screens here is the one in the center, which is the control screen, the control menu. Here you have your climate controls. Down here you can have gesture controls with the screen above there. Some important screens here as well in terms of your range and controlling some of the doors around the car. You can also control the volume of the stereo here, also on the steering wheel. And then you can even turn off the displays with this power button. The reason why that is there is this screen will never turn off because it's some of the control features, but you can turn off these two screens. Also, you can control a little bit more of the top screen here. Now up here, you'll see that we have a lot of functionality in the center stack. We could get into that with the media, the phone, the air conditioning, things like that. One very interesting thing of note is the climate control. You can do 3 different ways to control the air vents. Something that's amazing about this car is you'll see that the air vents do not have any places to manually, tactily move them.
Right.
That's because everything here is done with diffused, which cools the car down in a diffused manner, focus, which automatically focuses towards the person, and then individualized. You can take each individual air vent, place where they want the air to go, and how strong.
Right.
So that's definitely an important screen here. But again, most of the screens are right up over here. Then you have the passenger display, which is on the right-hand side. So the idea there is not only for the passenger to have some fun and have some interaction with the car, but also you can do some controls over here. So they could change the stereo while you drive. What really fun was the cockpit mode. So when you're driving, you can be a part of the actual functionality of the car. So here in front of the driver, beyond the steering wheel, Porsche calls this the boomerang screen, and that's because of its shape, of course. It's a floating dash, which looks fantastic in terms of design. But what we can see here is like a large extended map, but that can be changed. So you can make the map smaller and then have 2 screens on either side. Porsche calls these the tubes. And then you have another thing you can do here, which is the power meter. Most folks drive, you'll be able to see the recuperation coming off and the power as we drive. And then one more mode to do what's reduced, which is great in the evenings. So that's just a quick overview of the screens and usage. In this particular car, this car has 2 screens that are not standard. One of them is the passenger display that we discussed, and another one is in the rear of the car, has a touchscreen for the climate control.
So the sound system in here, it's a Burmester one. Is that, that's not the standard sound system in this car?
No, the standard sound system in the car is fantastic. And then there's an upgrade from there, which is the Bose surround sound system. You'll see a lot of other design features in here. The roof lining of this car is finished in an Alcantara, which Porsche now calls Race Tex lining. But one of by far, the most exciting thing about Porsche is the ability to individualize and make something exclusive. And that's something that's so exciting for Porsche, that you can take something that's already incredible and so dynamic and beautiful, but truly make it your own. So almost everything you can see can be individualized. You can change the trim of the air vents, the trim of the cup holders. Even up here, up on the roof lining, you can actually finish this in a leather or Race Tex and put in deviated stitching. Deviated stitching means a different color stitching from the dash. Like you can see here, the dash is finished in black stitching on black leather, but that can be changed. The steering wheel here is individualized. It's finished with a matte carbon on the spokes. You can even change the diameter of the steering wheel. So most anything that you see, this is what I tell folks, most anything you see in the car, that can be individualized to your individual preferences. And you can even take it off the menu. I mean, and if you can dream it, it can be done. Okay guys, so another screen we talked about in the 5th screen is the climate control that you can see in the back of the seats. So you're obviously going to have 4-zone climate control, and it's all automated. But in addition to that, you can see here that again, these vents here are adjustable by just going into that screen. So you can decide exactly where the vents are, what the strength is, if you want to move the air controls to the bottom or here through these center vents here. You also have seat controls in terms of your heating, your ventilation, and things like that, even into the rear passengers. So a total of 5 control screens in the car.
For a car does 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is what Porsche publishes. But another thing that I think a lot of your fans would know is that although Porsche publishes a 0 to 60 in this car at 2.6, if you check out some testing out there, you'll see it in the low 2s. And that's because Porsche always wants to have a little bit more in store for their owners.
Oh, yeah.
It's an under promise, over deliver aspect of all their conservative publications.
Now it's time to test the reason you buy an electric vehicle, and that is access to a lot of torque.
Off we go in the new Porsche Taycan Turbo S. The only difference is really in the 21 were mostly aesthetic. For example, there were some new color choices and things like that. Otherwise, they're remarkably similar since the car was all new for 2020. So the main thing that I think is important to say when you're driving this car, beyond the fact that it's a Porsche, which is very important, it's the all-new Taycan, it's a battery electric vehicle, is what I tell people is if there's anything about this car that you don't love when you're driving it, it's changeable.
Right.
You can modify everything. I mean, the seats are 18-way with air bladders. Obviously, that's an easy thing that can be changed. But the car itself, all the settings in the car can be changed. So that includes the air suspension, which you can raise and lower the car, thereby adjusting the comfort. It has a system called PDCC, which is Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control. What it does is it levels the car perfectly in corners.
Right.
So if you take a corner hard, it'll actually change the leveling of all 4 corners to make sure that you're perfectly flat, like as they say on rails. Then it also has PASM. PASM is Porsche Active Stability Management, and that has to do with high-level driving as well. Suspension controls that are adjustable, so you can make the suspension like Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus.
So from a standpoint with its competitors clearly being from speed and range wise in the EV world, the Tesla Model S is its closest competitor.
Certainly.
Just no other brand so far makes a car that comes close to the speed of these two vehicles. In your opinion, Porsche has always been a very track-focused brand. I mean, one of the things I pointed out in part of the video was the reason that power button is on the left side is because every ignition switch, every turn key has been on the left side of a Porsche due to the fact that race car drivers would get in the car, putting it in gear and turning the car on at the same time. And that was the reason it was on. So Porsche's always
that was from the Le Mans race start days, when the drivers would run to the cars and they would throw their foot in there and turn the ignition as they got in the car. Right. The ignition being on the left-hand side. Every second counted.
So Porsche being this track-focused brand from the beginning, every car they make, in some form, is a sports car. Even a base-level Macan still is a sports car.
So, sure, Porsche says that every Porsche has the soul of a sports car, no matter what. And the Macan, by the way, has a lot of basis in the 911. It's more of a large 911. It's got the all-wheel drive system and, of course, the PDK, the only SUV to have a dual-clutch transmission.
Which the PDK in itself, I mean, it's got to be one of the quickest shifting and most responsive transmissions I've ever used.
Certainly, it could be seen as a bit audacious to say Porsche is the best at everything. I don't think that would be accurate, but I would be very confident in saying that our PDK is the best dual clutch transmission available.
I would go as far as saying I agree with you on that. It's the fastest shifting transmission I've ever.
And it's adjustable at speed. With the Sport and Sport Plus modes. It's funny we mentioned transmission, by the way, because the Taycan's the only electric vehicle that has a 2-speed transmission.
In the rear axle.
Correct, and it does exactly single on the front, but it does not only give you a better launch, but also gives you a higher top speed than most electric cars. It kind of gives you that longer speed. But to talk about the Model S in comparison to the Taycan, I mean, you're talking about 2 luxury, large electric vehicle sedans. However, and so that's about where the similarities end.
Exactly.
Tesla's approach to transportation is to get it done with the least amount of drama possible. There's a bit of an appliance feel to it. So there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to get from point A to point B, you want it to be efficient, with a battery. If you want it to be fast, they can do that as well. but they are not looking for a lot of driver interaction. In fact, minimal interaction from the driver. Porsche is going to be the complete opposite. They believe that this car is going to be like an extension of your body, the on-center feel. You know, if you can think of it to happen in a Taycan, it can happen physically. Right. So they want it to be an extension of your body, and they want the driver to be involved. They want you to be involved in the driving process. You know, they want to take the mundane out of the everyday. Right. So if you're just going to go to the airport, you're going to go to the grocery store, this is going to make sure that it's an exciting experience.
Right. It's a fun drive.
Yeah. And it's also luxurious and comfortable.
Well, and that's how Porsche has always been. Every car is a driver's car, right, under the Porsche banner. Porsche has always been this brand that focuses on driving enthusiasts, and I feel like I feel like EV vehicles have had this miscommunication with its customers that an EV vehicle is going to be the vehicle that is self-driving and everything like that. Every EV vehicle has to be self-driving, and if you buy an EV vehicle, you want autopilot and everything like that. I don't think there's been much of a focus on EV vehicles mixed with track purpose, mixed with racing, versus every other brand is basically focusing on what can the car do without human interaction while also being an electric vehicle.
So that's a really interesting way of putting it, and I really like it. Here's something that I think you could even take your thought process a step further, is actually Tesla was innovative in that range when they first were thought about. The founders of Tesla wanted to build an electric car that was not only fun to drive, but it was great to look at. And look at the original Tesla Roadster, the original Tesla Roadster from a long time ago. It was great to look at. It was high performing. Prior to that, electric cars were all thought of as homely, uninteresting, not exciting, and probably not even very efficient in what they were trying to do. So Tesla actually wanted to change that and make something that was exciting and thrilling, and an EV that was fun to drive and look at. Well, obviously they've left a lot of that atmosphere and tried to leave the driver interaction part of it, still make a good looking car and a luxurious car, an efficient car. I think that Porsche has taken that original intention of the Tesla founders and taken it to a place only Porsche could, which is the most driver involved, the most exciting. Speaking of driving experience, what I wanted to say was, while we're driving this car has multiple modes. This particular car has 5 modes. So it has a range mode, which is obviously going to set all the parameters to try to give a most efficient range possible, the longest range. Correct. The normal mode, which is obviously the most direct mode there. Sport mode, which makes the car drive more sporting. Sport Plus, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. And then individualization. So the individualization part is important because as you switch those modes, it changes a lot of things about the car. Throttle response, braking response, recuperation response, even the suspension settings are changed. Even that space noise, the Star Wars noise, which Porsche calls it the electric sport sound. So all those settings are changed automatically in normal, Sport Plus specifically, but in an individual, you can set individual and you can program it the way you want your chassis to feel, the way you want the responses to feel. But the car is compliant and comfortable and easy to drive in all modes. But right now I have the car in Sport Plus mode. So Sport Plus mode is the most aggressive mode. This would be if you were to track the car, you want to drive it as aggressively as possible, although you can still drive it at a normal rate of speed like we've been doing. But something that makes Sport Plus mode the most different of all is it has the capability of a mode called launch control. So we'll try it now. You put the brake all the way to the ground, and then you simply put the throttle all the way to the ground. Make sure your head is against the headrest there, and we're going to engage. Oh my God. And that is where this car truly shines and is truly exceptional.
Oh, wow.
That acceleration is something that is very difficult to, and that was not launch control, something that's very difficult to put into words.
It's
something that is much better to feel.
You get tunnel vision. Your heart feels like it's at the back of your rib cage.
Porsche can do that type of performance repeatable over and over and over again. It's not going to damper its performance and things like that, and it can be done over and over, which we can do it again here shortly. It's about the engineering of a Porsche. I think there's a guy online that did like 50 launch launch controls in a row in a 911 Turbo S, and the car was still. This was without even turning the car off, just over and over and over. I mean, think about it. It's thought of, designed, built, tested, engineered, and owned in a country that doesn't have a speed limit.
Yeah.
So it has to be able to perform at all times.
Exactly. What's funny is Wesley was like, "This car's fast," and I was like, "Would you believe me if I said the 911 Turbo S can be faster?" And he was like, "No."
It's been a really good time. It's been fun experiencing the Taycan with you. And
thank you so much. I'd love to do this again.
Absolutely.
Maybe a 911 Turbo S next time.
I was like, I think we've got some more ideas in store.
Definitely.
Thanks a lot, Aiden.
So that's the Taycan Turbo S. For a base price of $185,000, you can have this insane high-performance electric car that will leave most of the gas-powered cars in the dust. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.